Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to StadiaCast. This is episode 6. We're on, next episode, you'll be able to catch up and listen to them all week long, every single day. And,
That's right.
and you definitely should go back and listen to the older ones. I'm Bill. That's Lloyd. How you doing, Lloyd?
I'm doing really good. Just like what you just said, be able to have 7 episodes to listen to, one a day for every day, ensuring that it's going to be the best week that you could possibly have. So go do that, folks.
Absolutely. Listen, before we get started, we record this show live over at youtube.com/StadiaCast. Thank you guys for subscribing and getting us our vanity URL. We really appreciate that. It makes it easier to share things out instead of typing out that ridiculously long set of numbers and letters. We record it normally on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern at our YouTube channel, but this time we're recording it a day early. We're recording it on Saturday because tomorrow I'm going to be taking my kids to go see Avengers Endgame, which both Lloyd and I have seen, and we won't say anything at all about it. So you don't have to worry about us spoiling anything, but that's why we moved the show to a day early. So now that you are in the know, I want to take a second and thank Elvis the Cat. Elvis the Cat. That's right. Elvis the Cat for their 5-star review on Apple Podcast. I really appreciate it. Lloyd, do you want to lead off the main discussion today?
Sure. I was actually just trying to think of how I could do cat voice with an Elvis voice. I was like, meow, meow. It didn't work out in my head, and it definitely didn't work out in real life. So let's move on.
Well, hold on. You got to thank Meryl very much.
Meow, meow, yeah, meow. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, man.
All right. Well, we thought a really great topic for this week, or Bill actually thought he brought this one up, and I was like, you know what, that is a really good topic, and that is how Google Stadia could impact the mobile phone gaming market in a couple different ways. And you could take the good side, you could take the bad side, where it's going to increase game sales on mobile phones, or it's going to decrease game sales on mobile phones. So I thought we could chat maybe a little bit about both sides, Bill.
Right. So first off, I definitely want to talk about both hardware and software and how it can affect those things. But let's start with software since you brought it up. Gaming on mobile is pretty huge. In fact, I would say there's a lot more people that play games on something like this than on a console or on a PC. And it would not surprise. Oh, I love that iPhone case that he's got his logo on there. Brilliant. I think there's a lot more people that are playing a game on that. And there are, of course, people out there that will say, those aren't games, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares what you think about what a game is. A game is something that somebody does to have fun. Okay, so just calm down with your definitions. A game is a game if the person playing it thinks it's a game. There's a lot of games on mobile, and for the most part, they're kind of garbage. For me, I think most of them are kind of bad. I don't enjoy playing games on my phone. I don't like my thumb covering up parts of the screen when I'm trying to do something. That always drives me crazy. And of course, there are ways around it, but a lot of developers that make games for the phone, they don't know that you're going to have a controller for your phone. They don't know that you'll have this other thing for your phone, so they can't really plan around it. So instead, they just say, we know everybody's got a touch screen, and they design a touch screen interface. And I think that there's a very good chance in the future that if Stadia takes off, I think that they're going to see a kind of a big hit to mobile phone developers. Like, it's going to be less attractive for people to make these. I hate to call it subpar experiences, because for me it's subpar, but there's so many people out there that really like it. I don't know that I certainly wouldn't be interested in playing a game on my phone unless it's through Stadia after Stadia comes out, if Stadia is good. What do you think, Lloyd?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Like, pretty much every phone will be able to play these games, and the games are going to look better than anything else that you could probably get on a phone. Like, there's some really good looking phone games, and I play a fair bit of phone games. Most of them like gacha games, and I feel guilty and dirty every single time that I play them. But I think that if you could play the latest Assassin's Creed, say, on your phone through Stadia, like why would you play, I don't know, some, I don't know, Crossy Road or a Match 3 Puzzler when you could play the biggest and best games that come out on your mobile device. So for me, I know I'm going to be wanting a bigger device than this when Stadia comes out, just because of that. It's actually kind of funny. Yesterday, my wife picked up the iPhone XR, which I thought was the same size as my phone, and it's a little bit bigger than my phone. So now I have phone envy, and I want to get a bigger phone because of that. But there's a pile of different devices that you can get for mobile that basically are, you'll have like a controller with a clip, and then you kind of put your phone on it, and then you can basically play the games that way. That would be a really cool addition to the Google Stadia controller, like just this clip that comes around it and then holds a mobile phone. But then I'm thinking about it. It's like, well, why would I play it on my phone that has a small screen? Why wouldn't I just get like a 12-inch tablet and play it that way, or play on a Chromebook? Like, it's really gonna allow me to play the games wherever I want to play them, which is why I love my Nintendo Switch so much, where I buy the latest and greatest game and then I take it with me wherever I go. Now I can just access that same game wherever I am and whatever device I am. So I could see in the future having Google Stadia would potentially impact the phone gaming market, although the phone gaming market is a lot different than a normal gaming market where everything is free, and then they want to charge you $500 to play the game over the next week by microtransactioning you to death. So
Death by
the
a
other thing that
thousand
could,
cuts.
exactly. And the other thing that could happen is a lot of these mobile games could just be ported over to Google Stadia, which then would just be terrible for me. I would not enjoy that because I don't want to have my addiction accessed in multiple places when it comes to games like that. So I think the phone market is probably going to be one of the ones that's going to be hit, not really hit in a negative way the hardest, but it's going to see the most kind of play when Stadia comes out, because people are going to be using it to play Stadia. People are going to stop playing their normal games and play Stadia games. Maybe they're going to play their phone games on Stadia. Maybe they're going to play some of their favorite Stadia games on their phone. Like, it's going to be a weird time, a transition point for the mobile gaming market, which really is the biggest market for number of players and the amount of revenue that's earned. Like, some of the games over in like China, and they make like hundreds of millions of dollars a week for some of these like crazy RPGs and gacha games and stuff like that. So I could definitely see that Stadia coming in when it's finally available in that market might take some of that money away from those companies.
Speaking of money that will be taken away from companies, possibly, uh, there are game or not games. There are phones out there transitioning over to hardware that are specifically designed for gaming. Now, none of them
Mhm.
are Apple. They're all Android stuff. Because Apple says this is the thing that you get, and this is the only thing that you get, and there's
Right.
both pluses and minuses for that. Um, but I'm just going to list off a couple of phones that are supposedly the best gaming phones of 2019. The Razer Phone 2, the
Mhm.
Huawei Mate 20 Pro, the Honor Play, the Sony Xperia, the OnePlus 6T, the Xiaomi Black Shark. These are all phones that are designed with gaming in mind. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that they have the top end processors, probably even better screens, and as well as better audio, things like that.
Right.
When I look at this and I say, okay, are we going to see phones abandon more powerful processors when it's not needed for gaming? I don't think so. I think that like the processor in your phone is used for so many different things. The number one thing that it's used for in your phone is taking pictures. When we take a picture with a phone, our phones are doing so much to give us, like the processor is doing so much to that picture right away to make that picture look as good as it does. Especially phones like the Google Pixel, like the 3, like that, the pictures that come off of that phone are insane, and that phone only has one lens, or one camera, whereas
Mhm.
things like the iPhone and almost every other phone out there have multiple cameras for different things on the back of the phone. The Google Pixel only has one, and then they do all of this stuff in software to make the pictures that much better, and that requires a lot of horsepower. So, do I think that the hardware is going to change? Probably not when it comes to the inside hardware, but I do anticipate that at some point in the future, these things like the Razer Phone 2 or the Huawei Mate 20 Pro, I bet you that we will see these kind of phones where it's more about, this one has the bigger screen, this one has a better, like this one can display 4K 120 frames per second. It's all going to be about how good is that screen, how many frames per second can you get through that screen, and how
Right.
good is the audio quality of the speakers or the DAC in order to give you the best possible sound. I think that gaming phones are going to go less on the CPU side of it and more towards, this is a Stadia phone, and I can't wait to see what Google does with the Pixel. In fact, there's a time, like Lloyd and I are both Apple guys.
Mhm.
I have an iPad Pro that I adore. This thing is amazing. I edit all my video on this thing. I have an iPhone 10 and I have an Apple Watch. Like I am all in on the Apple ecosystem, and damn, Stadia has me thinking of jumping ship for my phone. You know,
Yeah.
just because I want, I like the how the ecosystem will probably sync up. What do you think, Lloyd? What do you think about hardware?
Yeah, I definitely think the hardware will they'll adjust. There'll be Chromebooks that have a faster GPU in them, mainly to play streaming things like this. I think the whole hardware industry, I mean not the whole hardware industry, but the phone, the laptop market, stuff like that, they'll adjust because they'll see a need out there. Just like when external like eGPUs and bigger graphics cards and all that stuff happened, you had like a whole stack of different laptop manufacturers that were like, yeah, you can put a desktop quality card in here, and it's like they don't tell you that it's going to run at 5,000 degrees and things like that. Or you could use an eGPU, so you could have your laptop permanently tethered to an anchor that is running your graphics and stuff like that. So there's always going to be that type of stuff. The one interesting thing, like kind of the parallel between developing for a phone and developing for Stadia, is the low level API on say an Apple is called Metal. On a lot of Android devices, people are already using Vulkan, and that is something that is like Metal and Vulkan are very close to each other. They're very low level, very hands on the GPU and the CPU. So if you're a game developer and you're already optimizing your games to run very well on Metal or Metal 2 that's going to be coming out, or Vulkan already, because I believe Vulkan will run on the iPhone, not at the same level as Metal, but kind of above that. You're already doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and you're already using kind of the design standards to use a low level graphics API that knows about multiple CPUs, that knows about a huge memory overhead and stuff like that. So the game developers that are working now on games for phones may be the best kinds of game developers to move over to Stadia because they're already developing it with that kind of mindset for that kind of low level API stuff. So you have these really talented developers that are making really great phone games. You have all these hardware manufacturers that are going to make bigger screens. They're going to make things that do real time decoding of your video stream. It's already like decompress an H.264 video. Like every CPU has that kind of built into it, but maybe they're going to have some sort of co-processors. There's going to be things that are going to come out that I don't even can't even begin to imagine that'll make this video stream better, faster Wi-Fi, faster this, faster that, to try to make this experience a little bit better. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what kind of shakes out in the industry, because Stadia and other streaming services are really gonna take the industry as we know it and kind of I don't know, pull off the I don't know, the tablecloth a little bit and see what falls, because it's going to be a big period of change for the next little while.
All right, let's move on to our first news story of the day. If you, by the way, before we do, if you have your ideas about what's going to happen to the phone industry as to what's going on with Stadia, then it's super easy to get a hold of the show. We are at StadiaCast on Twitter, or you could just use the hashtag StadiaCast to get a hold of us, because both Lloyd and I will look for that. But make sure that you let us know what you think. Let's
Mhm.
talk about a little interview with Phil Harrison.
Buy a ColecoVision and a Coleco game cartridge by November 15th. We'll send you a free Cabbage Patch Kid by Christmas.
Phil Harrison was at the Games Beat Summit in Los Angeles, and he had a couple of very, very important quotes. First off, the very first quote I'm going to read, and I'm going to see what Lloyd thinks of this. He said, "We're asking gamers to buy the game, not the platform." What do you read into that?
I mean, a lot. It could mean a lot of different things. I mean, that quote doesn't really change any of the sort of postulating that we've been doing over the last little bit. But what it means is that there is going to be an option to own the game. A lot of people thought that you were just going to be buying access to a service and you would never own that game. So it seems like at least part of it, part of whatever their solution is going to allow for game ownership. But really, what does that mean when it's digital, right? You're not going to have a box to put on your shelf, but at least your account will own a license for that game.
Right. See, people look at this quote, and I think that there's probably a lot of people out there who say, "Oh, they want us to buy the game, not the platform, so there's no subscription here." I don't really think that that's what he means by that. I think
No.
what he means by that is, look, you don't have to buy a device, okay? So
Yeah.
because of that, it makes the barrier to entry that much lower. I do think that we will have a subscription. In fact, the next quote from this I guess his talk that he did at GamesBeat, he said, "Our platform at a fundamental level has been architected to support a very wide variety of what people call monetization options. Everything from purchase to transaction to subscription." So it seems like he's saying
Mhm.
exactly what Lloyd was just saying. He's saying, look, you're still going to be able to buy games. Think of Stadia, or one way that you can think of Stadia, at least this is how I feel he's saying. One way that you can look at Stadia is it's a store, kind of like the Steam store. I can go on the Steam store, I can buy a game, and I can play a game. It seems like they have built it so that's a possibility. However, it also says so there's purchase to transaction to subscription. I don't know what the hell he means by transaction in the middle. Maybe microtransaction, which makes me,
That's
throw up in my mouth a little bit.
yeah, that's what I think. I think it's going to be microtransactions, whether it's for in-game currency or whether it's a gotcha game where you're putting money into to pull the handle on the virtual slot machine.
Right. And before, I kind of joked about what I think of microtransactions. I'll say this. They can be bad, but they can also
Mhm.
be perfectly fine. In my opinion, things like buying coins in a game so that you can use those coins to buy a skin that you like in the game. I'm fine with that. That doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect
Sure.
gameplay. There's no gambling involved. What I don't like is when it's, buy a loot box in order to get a thing, or
Mhm.
buy something to make your character more powerful. Those are the two options that I don't ever want to see. And hopefully Google says, hey, developers, you can't do that here. Wouldn't that be nice? Then he says to subscription. So I think it makes perfect sense for Google to say, look, here's a subscription model. You pay whatever the subscription is, and you have access to certain games. However, you can also buy games if you'd like to own them,
Mhm.
or there probably be different tiers of subscriptions, probably based on how pretty you need your game to be. So if you're starting at 1080p, 30 frames per second, maybe that's like $5 a month. You go up to 1080p 60 for $6 a month, and so on and so forth. Where if you want uh, the aforementioned, how did he? I think it was 8K, 120 frames per second.
Yep.
Like that's probably $20 a month or something crazy like that. I don't know what it is that they're going to do, but uh, th- you can do a script subscription. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe he didn't mean that at all. Maybe he means, hey, you can buy games on Stadia. You can also subscribe to some games on Stadia, like, for instance, Final Fantasy XIV, which is a subscription MMO, which you have to pay every month in order to play that game. And I
Mhm.
think that there's a lot of ways that you can take what he's saying here. How are you going to parse it there, Lloyd?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's going to be very much similar to Game Pass, where you can subscribe to Game Pass. You get access to a library of games that have been on Game Pass, but that doesn't mean that that's the only place you can get games for your Xbox One. You're going to be able to buy a game when it first comes out. You'll be able to buy access to Assassin's Creed 20, and you could play Assassin's Creed 20, or you can wait 6 months and then maybe it'll be added to the Google Stadia subscription service. I could definitely see that as the way to move out, because then it gives smaller developers the ability to put their games on the service and make their money, but then it gives big developers the option of making the big sums of money that they normally make at launch, and then slowly move it into kind of like the long tail revenue generator from whatever people make on Game Pass right now. Like, developers don't talk about it, but you would assume that it's fractions of a penny per gameplay, and maybe with a bonus for amount of time spent or something. It would probably be something like that for Google Stadia, just kind of like a long tail revenue generator.
Right. Maxime in chat is saying, I think that there will have to be a subscription and individual purchases to attract developers that are not sure about subscriptions. And I
Exactly.
definitely agree with that. But I think it was maybe 3 episodes ago or so, we talked about the CEO of On Live, I think, was talking about how they were really surprised at the people who made the most money were the people who had their game on the subscription, and the people who sold games on live made less money the other way. So
Mm.
it could be a complete shift in the entire video game market, based on where the most money can be made. And another thing that they said, that was really interesting. And if you want to hear our whole discussion on that, go back a few episodes. Like I said, listen to every episode, but go back a few episodes. But there was one thing that I think that was really important, and that was, he said that, trying to piece it together. He said, "Oh my god, my brain! It's right on the tip of my brain." Okay, I got it. I got it. They said that the monetization options, because they were making money in based on how much time people spent playing their game, it behooved them to not push people away with gotcha mechanics, microtransactions, and all these other things that tend to uh, be ways that developers make money on free players. But if you're getting played for how often the game is being played all overall, then you're already making money. There's no need to do that, because all that does is get in the way for some
Mhm.
players. And I think that that's really awesome.
Definitely. Forget about being cool in the chat room says we may need to pay to have access to our purchase games. Remember that Stadia needs to make money too. And um, I I don't see a future where that happens, but you gotta look at you own a company and you put out a service, and that service costs money to run, and it's like, well, of course they got to make money. But then you realize that this is Google, who runs YouTube, where they don't charge people money at all on YouTube. Well, I guess you can get YouTube Red or whatever if you want, but everything is ad, like all the money is generated by ads. So people pay money to place their ads on videos. And with Stadia having an option where if you're playing a game, it gets backed up to a server and you could go and rewatch your gameplay through it, there's potential for ads to show up there. What isn't clear to me and makes me kind of wonder how this is going to play out is, if I'm a developer and I put out a game and I want to have my game running on servers, do I have to pay Google money to have that happening? Like if I have some background server for matchmaking and other stuff, am I paying Google? Because that's how it works now. Like if I'm in EA and I bring out the next new game, the next version of FIFA, every server that's out there that's running the game, I'm paying for. And if I'm a smaller developer, I'm paying Microsoft to run the matchmaking for my games. So is that going to happen for Stadia? We don't know yet, and I would be surprised if not. But then maybe not. Maybe this is going to throw a huge wrench into the way that the whole gaming industry works right now.
Right, and Phil Harrison seems to agree with you because the last quote, I'm going to skip the one before this, but the last quote he says is, "This is poised to change the way game value is perceived by players. When a game is a link, the internet is your store." So I almost feel like people aren't going to be going to the Stadia store and buying a game. They're going to
Mhm.
go to the developer's website and buy the game for Stadia, if that makes sense. So maybe you'll have a Stadia store that says, "Oh, look at the new thing that's available on Stadia." But I think a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, I'm going to go to EA's website in order to buy the latest FIFA on Stadia because the game is the link." And when they showed it off at that press conference, one of the things that they said was they showed you could buy it through Discord, you could buy it through Hangouts, you could buy it through
Yeah.
somebody texting you. Like there were all these different ways to buy the game, and you didn't have to go to a store and put in your, or like make an account there. It just it's frictionless, and the more frictionless that it is, the more money developers are going to make, which is going to bring them on board, and that's really the most important thing. Can you get developers on board?
100%. Like if you're watching a YouTube video for Moonlighter, and there's a buy link while you're watching it, and you think the game looks really cool, you click buy and it gets added to your Stadia account, and there. Or maybe it's already part of the service and there's just a play link. Like it could be just as easy as that. And then you have your credit card, or you fund your Google account with money through little reusable cards or whatever. You go to the grocery store and pick a $20 card up, and then you have this money sitting on your account there. And if that's how easy it is to buy a game and play a game, it's no longer a big process. You don't have to pre-order the game on Amazon and then wait for delivery, or go to the store and wait for midnight launches. It's just a matter of going to a YouTube and clicking buy or clicking play. And that will really change things. It'll bring console gaming down to the place that phone gaming has been for a while, where you just go to the app store, you hit buy, you're playing a game in 30 seconds. It's going to be great because you're not downloading anything. You don't have to wait. Like I just bought Mortal Kombat 11 for the Nintendo Switch. Before I could really play it, I had to wait for like a 24 gig download. It took forever.
Yeah.
That's not Stadia. That is Stadia is instant on instant play, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Right. And in this era of instant gratification, the things that are convenient are the things that succeed the most, I think.
Mhm.
We were talking about, bringing developers on board and making it so that attractive to them. Let's talk about a developer, like one of the biggest names in the industry.
Target announces the grand opening sale of its 19 new Los Angeles stores. Target's exploding prices on ColecoVision. Experience arcade game quality with push-button keyboards and 8-direction joysticks, complete with Donkey Kong cartridge for just $169.99.
Kojima, that was a little longer than I thought it was going to be. Sorry. Kojima is on board with Stadia. If you guys don't know who Kojima is, he is the guy behind the Metal Gear series, which I've never played. Don't be mad at me.
What?
Yeah, I know. I only played the first one on the NES. That's the only one that I ever played. And none of the other ones really were ones that I was. And it's bad because right back here, I don't know if we can see it. Yeah, there it is, right there. I've got a PlayStation Classic just sitting there waiting for me, and it's got Metal Gear Solid on it. I
Right.
don't have an excuse. Please don't be mad. But Kojima, he recently wrote like an article, and I went through and I found some quotes. Why don't you hit us with the first little bit?
Well, first off, before we get into that, Kojima is he was the main guy at Konami, really making video games. Like the Metal Gear stuff from Konami was fantastic, and then he went through like this huge like year and a half breakup with them, where they owned him and wouldn't let him make games. And now he's working on his own stuff, and he can kind of do whatever the heck he wants. He's partnering with PlayStation, which is going to be fantastic for his game. But for him to get excited over a new platform makes me excited because he seems to be very innovative when it comes to those types of things. He thinks outside of what the norms are from the gaming industry. So one of the big things that he starts talking about is that the future will come to begin finally, which is just bad translation from his Japanese, but the future will come. And he's been saying it for 10 years, but no one understood it. With 5G and 6G phones coming, the evolution of technology will not stop. The world has waited for this technology, and it's about to begin. So he's really talking about how right now we have LTE on our phones. 5G is coming. 5G is like is a huge step beyond LTE. The networks are faster, the latency is less. And 5G, when it's really rolled out globally and is usable, and you have enough of those little micro pods everywhere to cover everybody, the potential for gigabit download speeds or 500 megabit download speeds with very low latency is really there. And that's going to happen in a few years, and then 6G is going to come, and then 7G is going to come, and blah 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 blah. It's going to keep going. Internet speeds are only going to keep getting faster and faster. That's going to make things like streaming video games really a reality for us in just a short period of time. Like we can already do it in some instances, but more people around the world will be able to do it very shortly.
I like it. I like the fact that we've got a developer here, a developer who is wildly applauded for his not only his skill but for his forward thinkingness when it comes to video games, and he is very excited about what Stadia can do, which is pretty impressive. Now, I wonder if he'll be allowed to do things with Stadia now that he works directly with PlayStation. Like, I wonder what that contract looks like. Hopefully, he's not locked in too much, because that would be a shame. That being said, if he were locked in a lot, or if he were pretty much locked in, I don't think he would have written something like this. So I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to hearing something from him about this. My only thing is I know he's working on this game, Death Stranding, and I am not interested in that game even a little bit. Even though it's got his name on it, every time I see it, I'm like, I don't understand what the hell I'm looking at. I don't understand it. What is this thing? So
right.
are
Yeah.
you excited for that game?
I'm excited to see how insane it is. It's going to be wacky, and it is being published by Sony, so we'll never get Death Stranding on Stadia, but we'll get whatever comes after Death Stranding on Stadia, which makes me really excited.
Forget Being Cool
Potentially,
in chat says that we still have areas without LTE, and he's absolutely
Mhm,
right. There are
for sure.
places where this is not going to work, and that's just the reality of it. There are going to be places that will not be served by Google Stadia. There's nothing we can do about it except for wait.
Yep.
Um, Sorry. My where I live, I have LTE. And which is surprising because I live in the middle of nowhere. I live on a country road, and I have LTE. I have really good internet at my house. It's I mean, I'm lucky to have those things because I live in the US and there's no competition. I just happen to live in a spot where they were running the right wires at the right time, and it was just luck. There's going to be a
Mhm.
lot of people out there that can't use this because they don't have LTE. They're certainly not going to have 5G or 6G or 7G, and they're not going to have good enough internet at their house either in order to run this. Stadia is not for them. That sucks, but it's not for them. He says, he goes on to say, and this was actually really interesting. As streaming advances further, video content such as games and movies and documentaries will be on the same track. This is the future I want most. What will happen if that happens? With Netflix, etc., you will be able to select movies and games on the same screen. So the thing that jumps out to me is, oh man, it never occurred to me that, you know, the people who are currently the kings in streaming are YouTube and Netflix and Hulu. And YouTube is obviously going to be focused on Stadia. Do you think that we're going to have Hulu and Netflix making games? And I like, he even talks about Bandersnatch in this a little bit, which is, if you don't know, is this weird experiment that that Netflix did where it was almost like a choose your own adventure movie. And I haven't watched it, or I guess played it. But do you think Netflix and Hulu are going to start making their own games?
I think so. I think Netflix is already making their own games, or at least paying people to make games. Like they made the Minecraft story mode version for Netflix. The Bandersnatch is another one. I could see them making interactive experiences, not so much like your first-person dungeon crawling Tomb Raider kind of games, but adding some game elements into some of their TV shows, which would be fantastic. Hulu, on the other hand, I don't know how many people own Hulu now. Like,
Oh,
I
that's
can't
true.
imagine. I can't imagine them all sitting around a table and agreeing on anything. Although I think Disney owns most of Hulu now. I think. I don't know. It's super confusing. But yeah, Netflix, I could see developing their own kind of service and using that
Right,
for streaming games.
that Stranger Things season 3 video game that's coming to the Nintendo Switch might, maybe Stranger Things season 4, the video game, will be exclusive to Hulu, and you'll have,
Right.
or not Hulu, Netflix, and you'll have to
Right.
buy the Netflix controller, which will look like a giant N. I know that's what Capcom does.
That's right. Yeah, they're taking the Capcom. I don't know, it's a feather from their cap and using it in their own, which would be horrible. But I'd like to see it just so I could laugh at it.
Right. He finishes up by saying it's definitely different. It will come out in five. It will come out within 5 years when 5G spreads. Even with streaming, there's one big thing I want to do. I can't say because I get so spoiled if I talk too much. I think maybe he gets yelled at by PR people if he talks too much. I'm not sure if that's what he means. Uh,
Yeah.
he says in the next 5 years, I think that entertainment will change with AI. AI will change what you are currently doing interactively. I talked earlier about a streaming interactive content that I choose, but in the next 5 years, an AI that understands me may choose for myself.
Hmm.
He's basically talking about our last episode. So clearly he listened to our last episode of StadiaCast, right, Lloyd?
I'm very humbled, Mr. Kojima, that you listened to us and that you thought we had great ideas.
And I'm
I
sorry
love
that
it.
I don't like Death Stranding.
It's fantastic. I read that line and I just like, okay, my brain's on the right track. The train is going in the right direction because we're clearly thinking about the same thing, which is fantastic. And yeah, like in the future, if you have an AI, I don't know, a Jarvis that is sitting there and making decisions for you and helping you, and it lives in the cloud. I mean, that's going to be fantastic for a lot of people that aren't your normal go buy a cartridge and stick it into your Super Nintendo kind of game players. This is kind of the next generation, the new game players that will be coming because of that.
All right. Speaking of new game players, we got to talk about new game makers.
Oh, Pac-Man, I'm beat. And I'm hungry.
Thank goodness for Pac-Man pasta from Chef Boyardee.
Stadia is hiring. Listen, if you are a developer and you're listening to this show, you can get a job over at Google Careers, or you just follow the link in the show notes. The show notes are found over at runjumpstomp.com. They are looking for a bunch of people. Let me bring this in front of me. It's a technical account manager. They're looking for a product specialist, a software engineer, product manager, developer experience, game producer, game tech lead, product marketing manager, retention marketing manager, more marketing, store operations, software engineer, and tools and infrastructure. There's a whole bunch more. Lloyd, you're a
Yeah.
developer, aren't you?
I've developed in the past. I wouldn't call myself a developer now, but this is pretty exciting. And the jobs are exciting, but even more exciting is when you look at where they're located. So New York, New York, Mountain View, California, Munich, Germany. There's Taipei, Taiwan. There's Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. So they have Stadia development studios all over the globe, which is great because it's a service that's going to be available all over the globe. So it's good that they're kind of spreading out development into multiple areas to kind of take the talent from all those areas and use them to make the whole bigger and better.
That's right. It's time for feedback.
Now you can play Donkey Kong on your ColecoVision, Atari VCS, or Intellivision video game system. Donkey Kong has multiple screens, just like the arcade game.
Listen, if you are looking for us, we're at StadiaCast on Twitter. Luke WT, he sent a series of tweets to us. He said, finally caught up on StadiaCast. Great show, Bill and Lloyd. Do you guys ever think Nintendo's solution in the far future, when cloud gaming takes over, will be to use something like Stadia to package a subscription to their own games? What do you think, Lloyd?
No, as much as I'd love to play Nintendo games on Stadia, I don't see the future, at least in the near term, where that will happen. Nintendo likes to work with other companies if they're bringing their stuff to Nintendo. Nintendo doesn't like to put their stuff onto other platforms, though. They did make a series of phone games, so I could see similar bite-size games that would be playable on Stadia, but it wouldn't be your next like Mario Odyssey 2. You wouldn't be playing that on Stadia. That would be locked into the Nintendo Switch.
Well, I think what they're saying, if I read the tweet right, and of course I didn't read the rest of them, so maybe you didn't see those, but I think they're saying, do you think Nintendo will try and copy what Stadia is doing?
Oh, okay.
Right. So does that change your answer?
Um, no. I think Google Nintendo will eventually have to do something like this when the whole industry moves in that direction. But Nintendo doesn't understand what the internet is yet. They're slowly making baby steps into. They're reading the Internet for Dummies book and a bunch of other of the books from '94, and they're getting there. They're learning. Yeah, I think Nintendo having their own streaming network for their games will take a while. Not to say it won't happen, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. But yeah, maybe getting some of their experiences on Google Stadia might be something they could do in the near term to give people what they want.
I think Luke agrees with you. He says, I can't really see Nintendo creating their own streaming service as they don't seem to have enough resources, not to mention all their online services already suck. Curious to hear your thoughts in a future podcast. So thank you very much for writing in. I think we're kind of on board with what Luke is saying here.
Mhm.
Google has the resources to do this, and there's very few companies in the world that have the resources to do something like this. I think Google's definitely one of them. Microsoft might be one of them. I can't think of anybody else. I really can't. Maybe Netflix, because Netflix, like when you hit a button, man, that starts fast. But I can't think of anybody else that has the infrastructure needed, and Nintendo definitely doesn't. So I agree with Luke and I agree with Lloyd. I don't think it's going to happen. You want to read us the next tweet from Smashblock?
Sure. We also before that we got a question in chat or a
Oh,
comment in chat from One Track. The Switch in Japan is streaming games already? Question mark. And yes, but no. It's Ubisoft and Capcom that are streaming games. Nintendo's not providing any of the server space. They're not doing any of the overhead. Those are third-party companies that are doing that streaming. So maybe Nintendo will partner with one of them and start adding their games to that type of service. But I don't see it in the near future, but maybe something like that will happen.
I also have heard that people who've tried that outside of Japan has
Mhm.
said that it's been a horrendous experience, and that makes perfect sense. It's in Japan. It makes a lot of sense in a country like Japan because Japan is such a small country. It's much
Mhm.
easier to have good internet there, and people can take their device and stream. I think it was it Resident Evil and what was the other one from
Assassin's Creed
Assassin's Creed?
Odyssey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can stream those two games in Japan, but both Capcom and Ubisoft understand it's not going to work everywhere else because of just the infrastructure that is required. So even though it's already happening, I don't think Nintendo's ever going to do it. Well, okay, I can't say never. I don't think Nintendo's going to do it anytime soon. All right, tell us about
That's fair.
Smashblock.
All right, Smashblock Games writes in on Twitter using the hashtag StadiaCast. I think we have to assume that Stadia will be a subscription service based on their claims that you could be watching a YouTube video or favorite streamer and just jump into that game instantly. To provide this clean-cut service elimination of storefronts and money per game is essential. And yeah, thanks Smashblock for sending that in. And I agree that probably most of it will be streaming, but that doesn't mean that it has to be streaming, or sorry, subscription. Doesn't mean that it has to be subscription. The jump in right away, maybe every game to sign up with Google Stadia, maybe you have to say, okay, I give everybody 15 minutes to play this game. Maybe there's some time demo elements that are part of it. Maybe that is what they meant with a few of their quotes, or maybe it's just that that's the way to get in. You hit play and then it brings you to the game saying, okay, if you want to continue, pay $9.95 and insert your credit card here, and that's how you go through and play the games that way.
Right, when they were demoing this, and it was just like an instant or 5 seconds where you click play and then they're playing the game. Okay, that's great. They're not going to show us the part where you buy the game. That's boring. That's not fun to watch. That's not exciting. So they were obviously watching a game that they already own, or there's a subscription service, but maybe they were just watching a game that they already own and decided to click on it. And I know that there's people out there that are like, why would you watch a game that you already own? Why wouldn't you just play it? Clearly, you've never been on Twitch. Every time that I've ever streamed a game, I have everybody who comes to watch me play, they're always like, hey, do this, do that, do this. They already know everything about the game. And they,
Right.
you know, sometimes they backseat, sometimes they help me out, sometimes they explain something that I haven't quite figured out yet because I'm new at the game and I'm bad at games. But it could just be that when they were showing that demo, why would you show the purchase process? That slows everything down and isn't interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the one thing to remember is when things are shown off for the first time, unless you're looking at a piece of hardware, like they're showing off the new iPhone 11. Well, that is obviously what's going to come out. But when they talk about a new service, or they talk about a game for the first time, all those things always change. They're never identical to what you just saw. So for a developer conference, when they unveiled Stadia, they want to show developers how easy and how frictionless it could be from watching a game to playing a game that you own or to buying a game. I think at E3 we'll get a little bit more information on kind of how that kind of process flow is going to go. But yeah, I don't know, maybe a demo for each game. Maybe you click buy or click play, and then it says, do you want to buy this? You hit yes. There's many ways that they can make it nice and frictionless, but we'll know more around E3, I think.
Actually, we might know more sooner than that because in, I think it's 12 days, that's May 9th. In 12
Yep.
days, we'll be finding out more. That's at Google I/O. I think it was 2 episodes ago we talked about Google I/O. Go back and listen if you haven't already.
Yep.
Google I/O, they're going to have a couple of sessions that are all about Stadia. And I think that we are also going to have like a new Pixel unveiled, and I almost guarantee that when
New
they unveil
Chromecast.
that new Pixel, they're going to be like, and here it is using our Google Stadia controller playing this brand new game. Please don't show Assassin's Creed Odyssey again, Google. Okay, we're tired of that game. Show us something else. Show us something that we're going to be surprised about. Don't show Doom. Don't show Assassin's Creed. Show something else.
They're going to show Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the new Atlantis DLC that just dropped. That's what they're going to show.
Yes, Maxime in chat is saying Google I/O is May 7th, but
Yep.
that's the day of the keynote, and then they have like a few days after that they're talking about stuff. And excuse me, I don't remember the exact day because there's multiple tracks. I don't remember the exact day that they're talking about Stadia stuff, but I know that Google announced, they said, we've got a big announcement for May 9th. So who knows what that is going to be. Forget Being Cool in chat said, oh no, it was Maxime in chat said, kind of responding to what we said before, that instant link from YouTube is described in a specific GDC session that user play or buy games. So you have the option to hit play if you already have it, or you have the option to click buy if you don't own it yet. So that's another thing.
Yep.
All right. Anything else to add before we wrap things? Oh my God, Vaxxer in chat saying they're going to show Skyrim again. If they show Skyrim again, I'm gonna throw something.
I'm gonna buy it because I buy every version of Skyrim apparently because I'm a sucker for that game.
It's okay. It is a good game. I will admit it. It's a fantastic game. I bought it twice, but stop showing it. Wouldn't it be funny if they did that meme with the? Do you know the new Skyrim meme that's been going around for a couple weeks, where like everything fades to black, then it comes back up and they're playing Skyrim?
I missed that one, but I want to go find it now because
go find it. It's hilarious. It's like the new Rickroll, but you're getting Skyrimmed, I guess.
Nice.
Let's hit the outro.
The Atari 2600.
Now get up to $30 in rebate offers plus a free Pac-Man.
A free Pac-Man. Listen, if you want a free Pac-Man, follow the show on Twitter at StadiaCast. Follow me at Run Jump Stomp, and follow Lloyd where?
You can follow me at Dasme, DASME on Twitter.
And if you're shouting at us on Twitter, be sure to use the hashtag StadiaCast, because we both have multiple other shows, and it just makes it easier for us to funnel them down and know which show to put them in. I do also want to take a second and thank this is going to sound weird, but the unofficial Discord server on the official Stadia subreddit for letting people know about our show. So if you are interested in that at all, head over to bit.ly/Stadia Discord. That's bit.ly/Stadia Discord. The music that you are about to listen to is by Zircon, and it is awesome. So make sure that you check out their stuff at zirconstudios.bandcamp.com. And Lloyd and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Later, everybody.